The morning sun bled over the plains, spilling a soft gold across the barbed wire fence that bordered Ezekiel Harper's ranch. The man everyone called Zeke leaned against the porch rail, hat tugged low, coffee cooling in his palm. He had long ago stopped expecting visitors on his land. Most kept their distance. Grief has a way of pushing a man to the edges of the world, and Zeke had lived on that edge since the fever carried off his boy and wife 3 winters past. He saw it then, movement by the fence. At first, he thought it a stray coyote, ribs sharp beneath matted fur. But when he stepped closer, his boots crunching over frostbitten grass, he found not an animal, but a boy. Thin as a shadow, dirt smeared across his cheeks, hair sticking in clumps, hands gripping the wire as though it alone held him upright. The child's eyes met his, wide, uncertain, and in that instant Zeke felt his chest cave inward. The boy's face, Lord help him, it was the same as his Samuel's. The tilt of the jaw, the hollowed cheeks, even the way fear and hunger battled behind his gaze. For one shuddering heartbeat, Zeke believed his dead son had returned. "You'll cut your hands holding that way," Zeke said softly. His voice startled the child, who stumbled back, then swayed with exhaustion. Zeke's instincts caught him before he fell, arms steadying what little weight the boy carried. He was no more than 8, maybe 9. Zeke carried him inside. The house smelled of wood smoke and quiet neglect, a place kept functional but never warm. He set the boy at the table, ladled yesterday's stew into a tin bowl. The child's trembling fingers clutched the spoon, his movements frantic at first, then cautious, as though fearing the food would vanish if he reached too quickly. Zeke turned away, pretending to busy himself at the stove, but he watched from the corner of his eye. He remembered another boy, his Samuel, picking apart bread with careful hands, cheeks flushed from running wild in the fields. He remembered burying him with his mother, a box lowered into silence. His chest tightened with the memory until he had to grip the counter for steadiness. When the boy finished, he whispered, "Thank you, sir," voice hoarse, uncertain, like someone who had not spoken in days. "Name?" Zeke asked. The boy looked down at his empty bowl. "Sammy." Zeke nearly dropped the tin cup in his hand. The universe had a cruel humor, offering him a boy with his son's name and face. He said nothing, only nodded, though his heart thundered like a stampede. By evening, Zeke spread a blanket in the barn loft. The boy curled on the hay, too weary to ask questions. Zeke lingered at the ladder, lantern in hand, staring at the small rise and fall of his chest. When he finally blew the light out, he did so with the trembling care of a man extinguishing prayer. The next morning, Zeke rode into town for flour and salt. He felt eyes follow him more than usual. Myrtle Dunn, plump behind the counter of her general store, leaned close when she handed him the sack. "Heard you've taken in a stray," she whispered. "Folks say he ain't yours." Zeke's jaw tightened. He said nothing, only laid coins on the counter and left. Gossip was the currency of that town, and he knew it would spread faster than dust on a prairie wind. On the boardwalk outside, Sheriff Amos Grady caught him. "Zeke," he said, lowering his voice, "that boy don't belong to you. You keep him, there be questions. Folks don't like when lines blur." Zeke met his gaze steady cold. He was hungry. That's all that mattered. The sheriff studied him, then sighed. "Just know this town'll make it harder than it needs to be." Zeke rode back with his supplies, shoulders heavy with the warning. But when he reached the barn and saw Sammy's thin arms struggling to lift a bucket half his size, something inside him softened. He took the bucket, ruffled the boy's tangled hair without a word, and for the first time in years, felt the faintest ember of purpose stir in his chest. Days passed. Sammy grew steadier, though still frail. Zeke taught him how to hold a hammer, how to whistle for the horse, small lessons given in silence. They shared meals without much talk, but presence itself became a kind of language. It was on the 4th day that Clara Whitfield arrived. She came down the lane with a satchel clutched against her side, skirts dusted from the road. Zeke knew her face from town, the quiet younger sister of Margaret Whitfield, the one who had fled in shame after jilting a suitor, a wealthy rancher too heavy for her pride. Clara had taken the brunt of her sister's scandal. Some said she had come as a substitute, others that her family had pushed her out to hide their disgrace. She paused at the fence, smoothing her dress as if to gather courage. Zeke walked out to meet her, wary. "Mr. Harper," she said softly. I heard you might need help here. With the cooking. And the boy." Her eyes flicked toward the barn. Zeke studied her, silence stretching between them. She did not flinch, though the wind tugged her hair loose and the weight of gossip clung to her like dust. Finally, he nodded. "Suit yourself." Inside, Clara moved with a quiet grace. She unpacked bread, peeled potatoes, stirred a pot without asking where anything was. Sammy watched her with wide eyes. When she bent to place a bowl before him, her smile was small but certain, as though she had chosen kindness despite knowing how the world might punish her for it. That night, Zeke stood by the hearth while Clara hummed a tune, one he dimly remembered his wife singing. Sammy leaned against her side, half asleep, full for the first time in who knew how long. The firelight brushed her face in soft gold, her eyes distant yet determined. Zeke turned away before they could see the tears burning at the edge of his vision. He stepped onto the porch, stared at the empty fields, the horizon swallowed in shadow. Inside that house, life had begun to stir again. But outside, the air carried whispers from town, harsh and circling, ready to test whether he could bear their judgment once more. And though he would not admit it aloud, he feared he could not. The days folded into one another like worn pages, each marked by the sound of Sammy's laughter breaking against the silence that had once ruled Zeke's ranch. Clara's presence filled the house with a gentleness he had not thought possible again. She did not ask for thanks. Her kindness unfolded in small ways. The bread kneaded steady under her hands, the shirt she mended without a word, the quiet song she hummed that lulled Sammy into dreams. Yet with every tender moment, the shadow of town gossip grew darker. In Dunn's general store, whispers tangled like nettles. "That widower's keeping a boy who ain't his," someone hissed. "And a girl, too. Wrong sister, no ring. It ain't proper." Their words traveled faster than a prairie fire, finding ears eager to judge. Clara felt them like pricks against her skin each time she stepped into town. She lowered her eyes, bore the shame silently, and returned to the ranch without telling Zeke how cruel the stairs had become. One evening, after supper, Clara folded laundry by the fire. Sammy dozed on a quilt, curled like a pup. Zeke, sitting at the table, spoke in the slow, measured way of a man unused to speech. "You hear much in town?" She hesitated. The fire snapped. "Enough," she answered softly. His gaze lingered on her. "You think to leave?" Her hands stilled on the cloth. She lifted her eyes, wide, luminous with a quiet strength. "Not if I'm needed." Something in him broke loose at that, some grief-wrought dam that had long held him apart. He wanted to tell her about Samuel, about the fever, about the way he still woke some nights with the sound of his boys coughing echoing in his ears. But the words snagged in his throat, so instead he only said, "The boy, he needs you." Her lips curved, not into a smile, but into something steadier. "Then I'll stay." In the days that followed, she became part of the land itself. She rose with the dawn, milked the cow, taught Sammy his letters by tracing them in the dirt with a stick. Zeke watched from a distance, silent, until one afternoon he saw Sammy lean against Clara, his small hand resting trustingly in hers. The sight unraveled him. He turned away, clutching the fence post as if it alone kept him upright. But peace never holds long in a place where judgment is currency. One gray morning, Sheriff Amos rode up the lane with 2 deputies in tow. Behind them trailed a knot of townsfolk, faces pinched with curiosity and disdain. Clara stepped out of the house, skirts brushing dust, her expression pale but unshaken. Sammy froze in the yard, clutching the wooden horse Zeke had carved for him. Amos dismounted, voice firm. "Zeke, it's time this was set right. That boy belongs to the county now. Orphanage'll take him. You've no claim." Sammy's eyes filled with panic. He stumbled toward Zeke, clutching his shirt as though it were the last safe thing in the world. The rancher's arms closed around him instinctively, every muscle in his body screaming against surrender. Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. This is his home. Maybe not one the town approves of, but it's where he belongs. A murmur rippled through the crowd, sharp as rattles. Myrtle Dunn's voice rose above them. It ain't right, a widower playing father to another man's boy. And that girl, she's no wife, just a scandal hiding on his land. It's a house of shame. The words struck like stones, but Clara did not retreat. She moved closer to Zeke, her body a shield before the boy. Shame, she said, voice rising, is turning away a hungry child. Shame is leaving kindness undone because others might sneer. Her defiance stunned even Amos, who shifted uncomfortably in his boots. Yet the law still pressed heavy on his shoulders. Zeke, he said, quieter now, if you mean to keep him, you'll need to fight harder than words. Zeke's breath hitched. He felt Samuel's absence, the years of silence, the long nights alone with nothing but grief. He felt Clara beside him, trembling but unyielding. He looked down at the boy clinging to him, eyes pleading, and something inside him surged, a voice he had smothered since the day they lowered his son into the ground. I buried one child, Zeke said, his voice raw, carrying across the yard. I won't bury another by letting him be taken. The crowd stilled. His words cut deeper than any sermon, stripped bare of pride, laid out like an open wound. Amos's jaw worked, torn between duty and the truth he saw in the man before him. Finally, he exhaled, slow and heavy. Then the boy stays. But you'd better be ready to weather what follows. The deputies shifted, uneasy, then mounted their horses. The townsfolk, deprived of the spectacle they craved, drifted away, whispers still swirling but less certain now. Only Clara, Zeke, and Sammy remained in the yard, the silence around them deep as the prairie itself. Zeke's hands trembled as he set Sammy down gently, the boy's small fingers still clinging to his sleeve. Clara laid her hand over Zeke's, steadying it without a word. Their eyes met, and though neither spoke, something passed between them, an understanding carved not of romance yet, but of survival, of choosing each other in a world eager to strip them apart. That night, the house glowed warmer than it ever had. Clara read aloud from a battered Bible, her voice soft as candlelight. Sammy leaned against Zeke's side, drifting to sleep with trust heavy in his small body. And Zeke, for the first time in years, let his hand rest over another's, Clara's, without pulling away. Outside, the wind carried the last threads of gossip into the darkness. Inside, the ranch held a fragile peace stitched together by defiance, hunger, and grace. But Zeke knew peace never lasted long in the West. He stood at the window after they slept, watching the horizon, the land stretching endless and uncertain. He had claimed a boy who mirrored his lost son, welcomed a woman marked by scandal, and defied the judgment of an entire town. It felt like victory tonight, but he could already sense the next storm gathering, waiting to test just how much love a man's battered heart could bear.